If you've been around here for a few years, you know that every year, at the end of the year, I do a wrap up of movies that I intentionally skipped. Sometimes I go out of my way to skip horror movies, and I've been doing this for years and years, and I do have a huge list of horror movies that I've skipped and haven't watched yet. And today we are finally diving into this new series that I've been holding on to. I've been working on since June of this year. But this is movies that we've skipped, that I've skipped, that we finally went back and watched. And I have some thoughts. What's up, ghouls and gals? Welcome back. Today, as I mentioned, we are starting a new series, and once a month I'm going to have a new one of these videos breaking down a few movies that I'm finally getting around to, and for some of them forcing myself to watch. I'm looking at You, Martyrs remake. It was terrible, but we will get there. Today I'm trying to theme these videos. I'm trying to give you a theme with every one of these episodes. Today we have water themed videos, and today we're talking about Crawl from 2019, and first up is a good one. We're talking about Underwater from 2020, and that one I'll just let you know right off the bat, I'm really upset that I skipped it for so long. So if you enjoy this series and you like what's going on here, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more, check out all of my links down below if you would like to see any more of me or support the channel any further. We'll begin this video with Underwater because I really enjoyed it. Underwater is a film from 2020 directed by William Eubank. After an earthquake destroys their underwater station, 6 researchers must navigate 2 miles along the dangerous unknown depths of the ocean floor to make it to safety in a race against time. If there's one thing about me, it's I love movies where they're primarily set underwater. Just recently watched The Abyss and it was incredible. But I firstly would like to say that William Eubank really knows how to direct an action sequence. The opening scene for this movie, the disastrous opening scene, there's so much chaos, so much going on. It's so well directed and so well pulled off. I really enjoyed watching that, and it set the tone for what we were to expect throughout the movie. Unfortunately, I do have some not so nice things to say about William Eubank with Paranormal Activity Next of Kin, but you can expect that in a later video. Now, Underwater was filmed in 2017 initially, but it wasn't released until January of 2020, and I think that timing specifically really hindered the release, the reception. I had this movie on my radar, but I didn't skip it for any particular reason. I just felt like it was going to be a January dump, and it just wasn't going to be as good as I thought it could have been. And it way exceeded my expectations. And I feel like this movie is a really good example of not judging a book by its cover and not yucking anybody else's yum, because a January dump could end up being one of your favorite movies of the year. This was actually the movie that made me think of this series, to go back and watch this and talk about this with you guys, because it made me realize that maybe some of the movies I skipped aren't that bad. And this was a very surprising, action-packed aquatic horror. I will say, if you don't want any spoilers, I will be doing some light spoilers going forward, but the final boss in this film is Cthulhu-esque, and I think that is really cool. It adds a Lovecraftian horror touch to the film. And this movie was inspired by real-life underwater disasters like the Deepwater Horizon oil tragedy and other submarine or aquatic accidents. Little did they know that the submarine stuff would get way darker from there. But let's break down the film really quickly. So basically, we follow Nora Price, played by Kristen Stewart, a mechanical engineer working on the Kepler 822 research and drilling station deep in the Marianas Trench. A massive seismic event catastrophically damages their facility like an underwater earthquake, and Nora and a group of survivors attempt to reach safety. But the real horror begins when all of the escape pods are either destroyed or unavailable, and the only option left is to walk, literally, in pressurized suits on the ocean floor toward another safe station. Along the way, it gets so tense. The remaining crew face crushing pressure, darkness, which is literally my worst nightmare, is being in dark water, equipment failures, and even horrifying creatures that were awakened by the drilling, obviously. Casual underwater stuff, you know. Slowly losing crew, danger escalates, but in the end, Nora makes a dire choice in order to give the other two survivors a chance at living, even if it means sacrificing herself to stop the monster underwater. Now, something I think is cool as hell is Kristen Stewart suggested the buzz cut, the really short, blonde, bleached out buzz cut, and I think it looks so good on her, by the way. And William Eubanks said that it added to the stripped down survivalist tone of the movie. Now, let's wrap this one up. Do I regret skipping this one? Yes, entirely. It has a great opening, great action-packed scenes throughout the film, pretty cool effects, great acting. I once again will say I do think that the January 2020 release specifically kind of hindered the impact of the film. But I really do regret not seeing this one in theaters upon its release, because this is one that I think would play really well on the big screen. There's just so much to look at, and underwater movies make me feel so anxious, and I think the theater setting would make that even more unnerving and scary for me. A very cool aquatic horror with a Lovecraftian twist. I think I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 5. Very cool. But let's move into a film from the year prior, Crawl, from 2019, directed by Alexandra Aja. Gigantic alligators swarm around a young woman and her father as floodwaters take over their home. This one did kind of fly under the radar for me, but I did seek out the physical media, so I think we tried to watch this. I was going to revive Movie Roulette, and I decided to do this series instead and kind of talk about this with Underwater, because I feel like those kind of make an okay double feature. But the premise for Crawl is actually based on the real threat of being in Florida during a hurricane and having a possible alligator or crocodile encounter. Now, this movie was produced by Sam Raimi, and Sam Raimi also produced Don't Move, that came out, I think, last year or the year before. That movie was terrible. I just thought of Sam Raimi has not been producing great movies lately, but I think Sam Raimi is directing a new film coming up. We'll talk about that maybe later on. But I think Crawl kind of fits into so many different genres, like creature feature, action horror, drama horror. I don't know, there's just so much going on. It kind of explores family dynamics, one's survival instincts perhaps, and goes even further to climate change and the potential threat of danger in your own backyard. Now, I live in Canada, so this is not necessarily a threat to me, but let me tell you, had a dark intruder in our apartment this past summer. And when I say dark intruder, we had a giant cicada come through our window, and it was so scary. I felt like we were under attack. But anyways, let's quickly talk about Crawl. So in this film, we follow Haley Keller, played by Kea Scoladario, a competitive swimmer, how convenient, who races to her Florida hometown during a Category 5 hurricane, of course, to check on her injured father, Dave, a not so smart choice because they somehow both get trapped in good old Dave's basement. they discover they are not alone when massive alligators are swept in once again, extremely convenient, by the storm. And as the flood progresses and water levels rise, the house begins to collapse, and Haley has to use her strength, her smarts, and her swimming skills to survive both the deadly predators and the deadly storm. For me, this movie just had so many moments of like, of course you're a competitive swimmer and there's a flood. Of course this is happening. Of course, you know, like that's just how this movie made me feel. It was just so many moments of like, yeah, this is so convenient. And even though the story is actually set in Florida, it was filmed in large warehouse sound stages in Belgrade, Serbia. They built several elaborate water tanks to simulate flooding. Big tanks for neighborhood flooding and smaller ones for like interior shots. But this makes me so enraged. Over 5 million liters of water were used, sometimes per day, on the shooting of it's just such a waste of water. But I will say it is a typical creature feature with minimal filler, which was nice. It has a really breezy runtime, about 80 minutes. Am I glad I skipped this one for so long? Kind of. I feel like I would not really go back. Like, this is not one that I'm gonna try to watch again if I don't have to. But in saying that, I do think it would play really well with a crowd. Minimal cast was good. Moyfred Clark from Saint Maud is also in this film. Not for very long, but there was a minimal cast. The chemistry between them was okay. It was fine for me. I'll give this film a 2.5 out of 5. So let me know in the comments if you like this style of movie review. Going back to watch movies that I intentionally skipped. I like the idea of reviewing movies that I've never seen and going back to give you my first impressions and my actual feelings about movies that I put off for so long. And who knows, maybe along the way we'll find a gem, and I can tell you right now, it is not the Martyrs remake. That movie, if that movie has 0 haters, I'm dead. So on that note, I hope that you enjoyed. I will see you in my next video. I'm working on a very special Paranormal Activity special. How many times am I gonna say special? Anyways, I will see you guys very soon. Thank you for watching. Sayonara, Spooky Fam.